Welcome, kindergarten teachers. Today we are going over your second 6 weeks, and we are going to do a curriculum preview. I want to show you a few things that I've added in. First off, when you look on your screen, you're going to see something right here called a unit overview. It's under your unit documents. Your unit overview now includes a suggested pacing guide for Unit 4. It will tell you the order to go in. I have gone through here and put these in logical order. For example, you'll see we start with K.6a. What that is talking about, let's pull it up right here. It's talking about identifying the basic human needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Then we go to explaining the difference between the needs and wants. Then we move to explaining how basic needs can be met. Then we talk about why people have jobs, and we identify jobs. Then I've ended by talking about physical characteristics in the land and how that goes into the ways we earn our living, and then talking about technology. Altogether, you should spend 15 days on this unit. As you look at this, you might say, all these TEKS are exactly the same, but didn't this unit have a different name last year? It absolutely did. This is where we used to have the farms unit. But in going through the TEKS, you'll see that the information that the TEKS actually cover is much broader than farms. So I've opened it up for you to talk about the bigger economics lessons. So this is going to be a change this 6 weeks. If you have any questions, let me know. But let's go through together each piece of this unit, especially since there have been changes. K.6a talks about identifying basic human needs of food, shelter, and clothing. So it's to identify them. They need to get this vocabulary in: food, clothing, and shelter, and basic human needs. That's something key that you want to work on, and because it just says identify in the verb, here is where you can identify the picture. Which one of these pictures is a shelter? But then we're going to go talking about the difference between needs and wants. We have to make clear, and I have 2 different lessons here for you that you can use: an all I need lesson plan and a needs and wants sample lesson plan. That should help you out. Now, these are not lessons that you have to use, but they are here and they're available for you. So if that's something you want to use, great. I've tried to add those in when I see fit. I know in kindergarten you are without a textbook. So when I see lessons that can go along, I've tried to include those with you as well. Once you do that, you'll go into how basic needs can be met through self-producing, purchasing, trading, and all of this information. So you'll want to look on here and you'll be able to see all of these things. And right here I talked about they'll have to explain it, which means they can talk about, what are these 2 pictures? These are 2 pictures of self-producing. They're sewing and they're making this. Now, the next thing you're going to look at is explaining why people have jobs. And I have a lesson here about community helpers and the tools of their trade. That would be a great activity for you to do. This talks about why do people have jobs. It's bigger than just talking about why do people have jobs on a farm, but why does anyone have a job? Why does a teacher have a job? Why does a doctor have a job? This activity, I think, will be really helpful for you as you're looking at that. And then they can then identify jobs in the home school community. And here's some sample lessons as well. Getting the job done is something that they can look at, and you can just copy and paste this. Now this actually is very interesting. I found this, and this came from, and what you would do is you just copy and paste it, and what this came from was a unit called that was an exemplary TEA lesson, which I went and found that, and I was so excited about it. And it talks here about all the pieces that go with it. It came from Weatherford ISD. It talks about a summary of the unit. What are the enduring understandings, the overarching topics, essential questions. And then it goes down to, now this may say it takes more time, but you judge that based on how much you are. Here it talks about the economic standards and what this would be. Talks about, you can even sequence in here, and it'll tell you. It's a big lesson plan, but it'll give you all the pieces that you would need to go through. And so it'll talk you through a rubric, talks to you about the whole lesson. So this is a really good activity for you to look at as you're thinking of things that your students can do. So If you have any questions, let me know, but it has suggested resources, it has types of things going on, it talks about topical essential questions, overarching questions, what you can work on, and I've just included this to kind of give you an overview of some things that you might see. So I know this goes into a lot of detail about this type of lesson in general, but it's just another sample for you to talk about kind of as you're guiding your planning for learning. Now, when you go to community helpers and the tools of their trade, you're going to see something a little bit different. This getting the job done was kind of an overarching big view. Now over here you'll see community helpers and tools of their trade. And what these things pop up sometimes, y'all. When you're doing that, what you'll see is vocabulary it wants you to talk about. I am excited about this because you start off with a mystery box and you talk about what type of jobs there are, and then look at this, it even has the matching cards and the students match cards with certain types of jobs. So this is a great program too. So I've given you several different resources to look through. Then I've gone back to K.5a, which is where you'll go back to, and this talks to identify the physical characteristics of landforms. Now you might say, April, why are we doing this when we're in an economics unit? But this is strictly because of how it goes along with K.5b. When you start with identifying the physical characteristics of place, you have to know that first before you can lead into identify how the human characteristics of place contribute to earning a living, shelter, clothing, and food. So that's really where we're headed with that. And then you're going to talk about describing how technology helps people do their jobs and how technology would help the students do their job. And I've talked about this student as a job in itself. That's what used to be the farms unit. I think you'll have a lot in there to go into if you look into the resources as well. Always in the resources, I've identified things that can help you. There's some Texas Treasures, and there's a United Streaming video that I've put in here, and there's even several books that you might be able to find in your local library. So feel free to use those, and I know you're going to put together a great unit. And I also think this will free you up from being so dependent on farms only. You'll be able to pull in more resources that you may have available to you. Now, also in the second 6 weeks, you're going to hit fall celebrations. These are your patriotic holidays, such as President's Day, Veterans Day, Independence Day. Just like with the other one, you'll go to your unit overview. You have a suggested pacing guide, and it'll pull up right here for you. So on this one, there are two main TEKs here that we need to talk about, and then we combine everything else with them. The first one is K.1a, which is explaining the reasons for national patriotic holidays such as President's Day, Veterans Day, and Independence Day. And then the big one is identify the customs associated with these. So we're going to first hit what are the reasons for these. And this is where you're getting close to Columbus Day and Veterans Day in your scope and sequence. Now you're going to be off a little bit. You can also hit Independence Day, but remember that's in July, so it's a good time to talk about it now since you're not going to be here in July. So I would do it all at the same time. Now you're going to combine K.1a with the idea of placing the events in chronological order. You can place on chronological order, you can place Columbus's journey. You're also going to combine it with using vocabulary. Before, after, next, last, first. You're also going to combine it with identifying tools, maps, globes. Talk about Columbus's journey with maps. You're going to combine it with important historical figures, Christopher Columbus. When you look at this TEK, if it has the word including in it, I'm going to circle this for you. It means you have to teach these people. So here you're knocking this out. And you're going to talk about identify contributions of patriots and good citizens. These are our veterans. You need to talk about the people who we celebrate and average Americans. That's a great part. That's going to be 4 days. Then you're going to go to K.1b, and you're going to combine that with chronological order and with the similarities and differences among us as families, because it's all talking about the customs associated and our differences among people such as music, clothing, food, what do they eat. You're going to talk about describing the importance of family traditions and compare the family traditions. I'm hoping that by giving this to you, this will really help you out. Now, let's look at some of the TEKs for this. When you're looking at your curriculum clarifiers, you're going to talk about the reasons for national patriotic holidays. use that verbiage. That is key. You're going to look at customs associated with them. And notice on this one, it only says identify. So all I'm asking you to do in my assessment is to look at this picture and identify which national patriotic holiday we associate with this. Now that language sounds big for kindergartners, but that's the language in the TEKS for a reason. We want to make sure we're looking at that. Contributions of historical figures. We want to make sure we're talking about Christopher Columbus. And you can see as you go into some of these sample ones, place events in chronological order. I had this as a great idea. Talk to your student about a holiday or celebration and have them draw a picture of the events that take place. For example, if you're on a 4th of July picnic, you are going to start with my family at a picnic, my family watching fireworks, my family going home in the car. And then you can add in K.3b to then say first, next, last, and use those words with a type of picture. That's something that can very easily be done. Now let's go on to a change that we've had to make. In our original scope and sequence, we had this in the third 6 weeks, but this year we have a whole week off at Thanksgiving. So it's going to be important that we teach Thanksgiving prior to leaving for Thanksgiving break. So it's been bumped up to the second 6 weeks. Now, when you go into Thanksgiving, here we have their standards. Once again, I have your unit documents, unit overview, and I have a suggested pacing guide. What's really interesting on here is you'll notice, and I have them grouped together because a lot of these will go together. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Right here I have that identify contributions of patriots would go together with placing things in logical order, with using before, after, next, with identify physical characteristics of landforms. That also goes with identify basic human needs. It also goes with K.6c, explain how basic needs can be met through self-producing purchasing, and K.7b. You might be asking yourself, these sound like the same TEKS. They absolutely are. But now we're looking at them within our content area of Thanksgiving. So I've grouped those together, and then so you'll really hit kind of that start. And then when you look at K.11a, 11b, that's when you're talking about this is the basics. This piece right here are the basics of what is Thanksgiving, where was Thanksgiving, all that. When you go into these ones, it's how does this apply to you? So that's the difference. That's why we're not spending as much time talking about our own family traditions as we are learning the content pieces. And you will see that in each one of these, I have given you your standard clarifiers. I have done, for example, patriots, but this time I'm writing a standard clarifier about patriots, and students should be able to answer this. How did Squanto help the Pilgrims meet their basic needs? So I'm actually talking about someone specifically to social studies, and specifically in Thanksgiving. So that should help you out. I also want to show you on the resources document a few things. This is where you can use your ELA. You should have 2 ELA leveled readers, Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving dinner. But in addition to that, I have a website here for you to go to that I think you will really like. This website has been up for a while, and I know it was on CCO last year. If you will highlight that website, let's get to it and see what we have here. The website has the first Thanksgiving on it. It talks about virtual field trips. You can take a voyage on the Mayflower. I have a lesson plan activity for you in here as well that has similar things. Look, here's your timeline. See, we've been talking about making sure timelines get in. It has daily life. You can talk about housing. It's linked up. So this is something that I think would be really helpful for your students and for you to use. And when you go into these, you'll see in your standard clarifiers, there should be in these as you go through, you'll kind of see pieces. So you could go in, use this, and then add it in right here. So I think it'll be helpful for you. I think you'll really find that website will be helpful. I'm going to keep looking for things for you, kindergarten. You're doing a terrific job, let me just say. Here I've added a picture for you that you could use. If you have any questions, you let me know. I know you're going to have a great second 6 weeks, just like you had a great first 6 weeks. Thank you for all your hard work. If I can be of any assistance, please let me know.